15 degrees, you can see your breath. Out here in the lake effect, breaking tables like it's poetry. Where else would you rather be? Pinto on Elvis in the lay poncho. The members that you need to know. 'Cause once you out here now, your family. Where else would you rather be? Where else would you rather be?
Welcome into the Nickel City Crew. I am your host, Rob Crippen. Please like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Nickel City Crew. This episode, along with all of our episodes, are presented by Crippen Legacy Entertainment here on Spreaker and StreamYard. We're so glad that you're joining us for some of your Buffalo Bills and NFL content again today. And as always, these are my Bills thoughts said out loud.
It's a vibe so ridiculous. Since 12 plus 83 was 6. The shout rocking like a symphony. Where else would you rather be?
All right, let's get straight to it. Really excited for tonight's episode 2 of season 5. DT and I are back. Click, clack, we back. TGIF. Really excited for tonight's episode just because it's funny because the draft just like consumes people, and I've watched it. DT has watched it, my co-host. I mean, it's just like it is its own entity. It's its own organism, if you will. The draft coverage, the mock drafts, the predictions, the visits, all that other type of stuff. And then you've got the draft teardown of prospects and the character. And Cam Newton smiles funny, and he seems disingenuous. And Shedeur Sanders is a little bit too braggadocious. He's a little bit too cocky for our taste. All that type of stuff just comes into play. And you're just like, what in the ham sandwich does it all mean, as my father would say? Next week, we'll get a chance to find out. Joining me tonight for the 2025 NFL Draft Preview, my co-host, riding shotgun as always, Adam Dump Truck Rupsick. Holla at the crew, DT. We're gonna dip our toe into the draft water. What's good, man?
Nickel City, what's good? Rob, how we doing, baby? Happy Friday night to you. Good Friday onto a nice holiday weekend here. Weather's breaking a little in the rough buff. We had warmer temperatures today after legit snow on the cars earlier in the week, but sun's creeping out. It's looking like it's going to be a good evening. Maybe a nice little porch sitting evening, getting ready to go for the holiday weekend ahead. But yeah, draft season kind of marks the beginning of that second half of that off season, and we're ready to rock. I like being a few years removed from where the draft doesn't matter as much to us as it used to before we had 17 in the boys, and we were watching that top 10 every year and picking there every year and seeing who was going to be the next big thing for the organization. Now it's a little more just filling holes and building up the roster on the back end, and not so much it doesn't matter, but I've definitely, as we've talked about, lost a lot of intention with it. I kind of just let it roll out. I have some ideas, which we'll get into tonight, but it's more of a let the boys do their thing and then let's critique it afterwards.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. It's funny because after 17 got here, you're absolutely right. It's just the hand wringing and the worrying about who, oh my gosh, and what are we going to do? And are they going to pick a quarterback? And are we going to get it right? And all those different types of questions that you ask yourself as Bills Mafia. We really don't have to worry about that. So thank God for Josh Allen, and one of Josh Allen's biggest supporters, my brother from another mother, the creative director over at BuffaloFAMBase, the official Bills Mafia podcast network that DT and I simulcast on. Boy, if I could tell you how many good comments I got about season 4 finale, and what was one of the main comments I got from my brother, just mad people in general, just fans of the show, just reaching out and like, yo, man, that was a great episode. That was a great episode. I like Justus. Oh, I like him. And I like how y'all are. Y'all like, listen, man, we didn't manufacture it. It's just organic. That's how it goes, especially when the season ends like it did last year. Joining us tonight, our special guest, creative director over at BuffaloFAMBase, the incomparable Justus General Radford. Check him out on Instagram and Twitter at JA17MVP, which is now prophetic. Holla at the crew. What's good? What's good, Justus? Salute.
I'm muted, of course. Grand entrance. Holla at the crew. What's going on, fellas? Thank you for having me. I always appreciate coming on with you guys. And I'm not necessarily a Josh Allen supporter as much as I am a Josh Allen truther. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I just tell you how I see it, man. But good.
You're a supporter. Get the hell out of here.
And another thing is, you got a reoccurring guest every time we play New England for the next 3 years. Because I want to come here to tell you why Stephon Diggs is a bum. And
let's wait for the schedule release next month. We can get on that because I literally was thinking about that the other day about how you and I differ so much on that opinion, and I love it, and I love it. I can't wait for schedule release next month and everything that follows. Now, before we get to next month, DT, we talked about it to start the show. You know, it's interesting because the NFL draft is really, really popular, and I understand its popularity. We've all just spoken to reasons why we may not be necessarily as into it as we used to be because of the presence of 17. But DT, there's no denying that the NFL draft is a big ticket. It's a big item. People love to see the combine. They love to see these guys come together and really team building. That's really what it is. It's team building on a public stage. And I know that the Buffalo Bills, with their new stadium coming out next year, they've already talked about how they want to put in their bid for the 27 or 28 or 29 draft, different things like that. It's in Green Bay this year, Bills Mafia, Nickel City Crew. And they're talking about how, man, if Green Bay, a small town, can do it and can throw it, then we can throw it here in Buffalo. So the NFL draft really does attract people, DT. It's not something that we're just making up. The draft is its own literal NFL portion of business. It's its own division.
Well, once they started changing it away from Radio City and putting it in other cities, what was it? The first year it was in Nashville, right? And
yes.
Blew up that whole street, that whole Broadway. There was half a million people
that weekend.
Yeah, and so it is a big ticket.
People that weekend.
And we talk about, like, I watched the draft. I'm into it. I want to see, I like the drama in the beginning, even though the Bills aren't included. Like, I watch it, and I know the top guys, and this year especially a little more, intrigue with the Deion Sanders disciples out of Colorado, and they're kind of busting up the top of the draft, and teams that stink in our division are picking in the top 10 in all those spots. So it's something to watch, kind of who's going to be in the division as well. So I do like the draft, but like we said, that as for the Bills side, we're just kind of step back and let it happen. But a lot of people go all out, and it's a pride thing now. I mean, the Nashville thing, Detroit last year was a big deal. It's in Green Bay, obviously a cultured football city in Green Bay, and I think it's going to be a big turnout. And it's starting to become a commodity to go to this, and to the point where I want it in Buffalo, right? You want to have that status to host the draft, and people love it. It's the future. I think the biggest thing, it signifies hope, right, Rob? Like, it's a team that stinks. You get an early pick, and you're bringing that person in that's going to change your franchise. And case in point, obviously, we saw that 7 years ago with 17, and teams see that literally every year with playmakers that come in. And it's not always in the top 10. Sometimes it's in the 5th or 6th round, but that hope you're selling people is what I think is the biggest draw to it. So it's exciting. I love when the ticker comes and Goodell comes across and people boo him, and it's just tradition. Unlike any other, as we just got out of the Masters. But I think the biggest thing why it's such a big deal is the hope factor. And as social media and all these things get bigger and bigger each year, everybody's a little more in tune. And these players are now marketing themselves a lot sooner than just their senior year, coming out and being in the combine. They've got the NIL money. They're professional stars before they get to this level, and people are starting to see them as professional stars before they get to this level. So it's just another form of entertainment. You're raising the bar up a little bit, but I think the biggest draw to it is the hope. It signifies hope. And for all those peasant teams in the league that we don't have to worry about, at least for the next couple of years, hope is what they're thriving on.
Oh, is Rob muted?
Hope springs to become funny. It seems like, you're good. Every year, it seems like I see on Twitter, like the replay of Josh being chosen. And it's fun. I remember watching that draft, and like, I want Josh Rose, and I was like, Goodell said Josh. I was like, Allen, and then he said Rosen, and I mean, so he said, I mean, I'm like, I'm hoping that it says Rosen, and he says Allen, and I'm like, oh man, a bum. And there's this video of these guys at the bar, and they're holding and throwing down hats and shit like that. And it's funny because I'll push back on you, Justus. You are a Josh Allen supporter, and I know you're a truther at heart, but you are a Josh Allen supporter, and he won us, and Brandon Beane had to move up twice to go get him. So kind of what DC spoke about, Justus, is that it does bring hope. We didn't know what Josh Allen was going to be. Some of us were mad that we got him, and it turns out that he's the MVP of the league last year, reigning MVP coming into 2025. Justus, this is hope season for sure. DT's right about that.
Yeah, it's certainly hope season. And I mean, yeah, I support Josh Allen, of course, because he's my quarterback. But I also tell the truth, whenever he isn't performing up to what I believe to be his stable, I let it be known. He just doesn't do it very often. So I only got good stuff to talk about for the most part. But that's neither here nor there. I look, man, when we drafted Josh Allen, I was at the movies, right? I was going to see Avengers, Infinity War came out. Or was it Endgame? It was one of the two. Same day. And I remember I'm sitting in my seat.
Yeah, it was the first one.
It was Infinity War. I'm sitting in my seat. I'm so excited. I'm about to see the biggest movie of the millennium. I look into my phone with the 7th pick. The Bills trade up and get Josh Allen. Oh my God. I was pissed. I was mad as hell. And I think back on that day and I was just like, yeah, I was wrong. And thank goodness I was, because I wouldn't have wanted any other quarterback. Like, this was the guy. This was the guy. We got lucky and got maybe the most talented quarterback in the history of football. So, draft is exactly what DT said. He hit the nail on the head. It's about hope. It brings you hope, because these last couple of years are really, I mean, not that I don't care about the draft, but I certainly don't care as much as I did when we were a bad team. This was the only time we really got any burn in the media. But then it sucked because we were always picking like 10. We were never the picks, right? Like, we always had like a mediocre pick.
Yep.
And now it's just like you're so far down the line that it's easy to mock and say, oh, this guy should be available around this time. We'll see. But it never happens, right? It never happen. Some 3rd round pick always gets drafted 12th. And then people are like, why he got reached? And then, some 9th overall pick slides to like 25 or something. Like, it always happens. So, it is the season
for the gas mask.
Yeah, right. We need to get Travis Hunter in the gas mask. No, but it's definitely a season for hope.
Yeah. Tons of I love it. DT, before we get started, I wanted, what was your story since we started this way? Justus started it organically. What was your Josh Allen experience? Because again, that meme must go around. That little video clip goes around on Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that every single draft season. It's like 5 guys around the bar, and one guy's holding one guy by his neck, and then all of a sudden he says Allen, and they're just, they are distraught. They are despondent. And I was the same way. I cannot lie. I'll keep it 100. Like, I was hoping for Rosen just because I thought that was the best of what was remaining. They talked about, Baker. They talked about Darnold. And after that, I was like, well, I guess Rosen, the guy from UCLA, he's, he looks like a pro. He looks like pro. What was your experience? Where, like, do you have anniversary date? Like, where were you when? And Josh Allen, when the Bills drafted him, is something that Bills Mafia can recall.
Yeah, I definitely recall it. I will say my reaction wasn't negative. I wasn't like, oh, he's going to be the best player I've ever seen in a Bills uniform. I didn't say anything like that. But it was more coming a year removed of kind of the premise of, if we got 7 draft picks, let's pick 7 quarterbacks. Like, let's just keep drafting quarterbacks until we find our franchise guy. And so we weren't too far away from getting to that specific situation. So I wasn't like, really, whatever happened, as long as we got a quarterback, we'll see if he's the guy. EJ Manuel was the last one and he wasn't. So let's just keep drafting quarterbacks until we find it. I was a Baker Mayfield guy going into the offseason. I just loved him being basically a dickhead at Oklahoma and balling out. And And I thought, he'd be that kind of vibe would fit into the blue collar, like roughneck Buffalo, like the underdog that like now we're got a quarterback. So screw you. So I was a Baker Mayfield guy. Obviously he went number 1 overall. That took everything out of the picture, and I just kind of all let it shake out. I never was on Josh Rosen. I'll say that. I always thought he was a narc. He was a nerd.
Pretty boy.
He had just like not the vibe we were looking for. Darnold was in there. I didn't mind Lamar either. In that fact to kind of switch it all up, get somebody, and I think that would have worked out great too. But
they just came off a Tyrod, I heard this morning on WG, and I was like, that does make sense. Like they probably weren't going to get another running quarterback.
So I wasn't like upset when we got Josh Allen. Didn't know much about him, and coming off kind of a time where I was like, let's take a quarterback every single pick of the draft until we find our guy, and Josh Allen it was. So wasn't disappointed, but definitely wasn't knowing he was going to be the 17 we all know and love. It was before I started at Enterprise, or maybe, I don't know. It was early on in my career.
And, a long time ago.
No, I would have been working at Enterprise. But the fact of I was just hanging out with my boy Bobby, and we were up watching the draft, and Josh Allen. I said, well, here we go. So, and I'm glad we did it.
Funny.
But I was a Baker Mayfield guy. I got a whole monologue after the Bills playoff loss to the Jaguars, and I'm who knows where I was in my own head in this monologue. It was a long day, but I was calling for Baker Mayfield. I thought 6 was coming to the Bills, and he went 1 overall, and I was just kind of like, well, fuck it, whatever happens.
You too, Justus. You too. Yeah, I mean, I like
early in the draft process, he wasn't the number 1 pick. It was like,
no, he wasn't.
They were going back and forth, and I was like, oh, I want Baker Mayfield. Like, he's a winner, great attitude. He had the right charisma. Blah blah blah.
Right.
And yeah, I wanted him too. And then once I realized he was going to be the number 1 overall pick, I wanted Rosen.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, DT, that he seemed like a little preppy rich kid, and that was one of the knocks on him and stuff like that. But I was like, well, they say he's the most NFL ready, so that's kind of why I latched to that. So Josh, Roger Goodell had me with Josh, and then when he finished up with Allen instead of Rosen, I can't lie. I was disappointed that night, and I'm glad to be wrong.
So Rosen was the high school quarterback, I believe, for in Vegas for excuse me, Snoop Dogg's kid. Snoop Dogg's kid was the wide receiver.
Brodus.
And I remember like watching that little like documentary on it, and Rosen was the quarterback there, and I was like, this kid's kind of a square. Like,
he was not Buffalo. No, he was not Buffalo.
And then in college, like same deal. So I was never really I never really liked him. He didn't pass my vibe check.
I like it. I like it a lot. Now, as we transition and talk about the 2025 draft, again, shout out to BuffaloFAMBase. Shout out to Nickel City Crew. Over 300 people already tuning in. So again, the draft just attracts people. We really appreciate you guys tonight. Listen, the Buffalo Bills. Let's try to get a baseline as we go through this episode real quick of what we think they need. What do you think the Bills need? I know when we ended season 4 of Nickel City Crew, I think it was unanimous, even with our guest Mama Monday. The Bills need more blue chippers. Now, it's hard to get blue chippers, fellas, at pick 30. When you're going in deep in the runs in the playoffs and things like that, it's hard to get those top-end talents. So that leaves Brandon Beane with, a couple options. You either have to trade up, which is sometimes harder, depending on your draft capital. And then if you're not going to trade up and you're going to stand pat, then you really got to hit it. And one of the things that I think that is so funny about Josh Allen is that we didn't know. And I think that should always be the theme in the back of your mind, Bills Mafia, the back of your mind, Nickel City Crew, is that it really is a crapshoot. The draft, we don't have a damn clue. You can do as many mocks as Mel Kiper and Todd McShay, and I know Chris Trapasso has been on WGR all week, and he's given his mocks and different things like that. It's all fun, and I get it, but you just don't know. You go off the tape, number one, what these college kids have done on Saturdays, and then after that, you bring up their measurables from Indianapolis. After that, I don't know really. I don't even know like a scout. I understand the scout's role, Justus. I just don't know how are they supposed to do their job effectively? Like, I don't know. He seems like he's good, but then you can get somebody and it's just Jamarcus Russell. You have no fucking clue.
Yeah, no, but to your point, like you think about it, I forget what draft it was. I feel like it was like the 2022, 21, 22 draft, something around there.
Who's that?
You draft a cornerback in the first round, right?
Okay.
And you get a superstar cornerback essentially, right?
Yeah.
Only it's not the first round pick, it's the 6th round pick.
Oh yeah. You're talking about Brady.
Like, it's a crapshoot, you know.
Yes, yeah,
like,
it is.
Like Brandon Bean, his scout team is phenomenal in the middle to late rounds. They're not so hot in the first round. You know, the second round, I'll give them that. They're decent in the second round. Osiris Torrance, James Cook, Ray Davis. Like they've got some good second round, but the first round picks have not been the best.
There's nothing to show for it other than Josh.
So to your point, Rob, what'd you say when you first started? You said the Bills need more blue chippers, and what? It's hard to get blue chippers. So my philosophy is, all right, if we're going to keep picking at 30, which is essentially a second round pick, right? Your goal is to host, your goal is to play in the Super Bowl. So you want to be the 32 pick,
right?
Send some picks away, trade away some picks, go get a top 15 pick.
Yeah.
Go get a blue chipper.
Yeah.
You like, how upset would you be if we got, a blue chipper instead of drafting Gregory Rousseau, or instead of drafting Dalton Kincaid, or you know what I mean? Like
at a different position?
Yeah, I'm saying like a bona fide superstar. Somebody who's
I don't care what position he plays other than kicker. I want him on the Bills.
Exactly. Like when you trade for a player, the price seems so steep until he turns into Saquon Barkley, right? The price seems so steep until he turns into Terrell Owens or whatever the case may be. Like if it works, it works. What was I think it was Eric Dickerson. They gave away everything for Eric Dickerson.
Yeah, Ricky Williams, the same thing.
The stupidest trade ever. And what? Eric Dickerson still somehow gave you a more than positive ROI. So like if it's a superstar player that's going to help you win championships, help you win games, someone who you're going to beg to, give the max contract to. You're gonna beg them, like, please let me give you a max contract. Like, go get him, man. Go get him.
DT, go ahead, DT.
Other than Josh Allen, like you said, Rob, there's nothing to show for.
Not
there's
for first round. Justus is right. Not for the first round.
In that first round, it's Josh Allen. That's it. Edmonds is gone. Excuse me, Kyrie Elam's gone. Jury's still out on Dalton Kincaid.
They paid Rousseau, but
again, late, whatever. I mean, the trade for Stephon Diggs was the best first round move
investment
other than Josh Allen, and Josh Allen's a generational, once in a lifetime pick. So if you,
and even Ed Oliver is not that. He's a little bit better than Rousseau to me. He's better than Rousseau. I like him too.
I think that the lack of a D line really, really screws him over a little bit. I think that he has good talent though.
Okay,
but there's really nothing other than making that trade for Steph Diggs, and that was obviously was good until it wasn't. So making a big splash, the Rams did it a few years ago and won a Super Bowl. Like it is like even if you get a blue chip guy, it's going to take him a couple of years to get blue chip. Even if he has a first good season,
unless you're Aaron Donald or something like
he's that. Unless you have a first good season, he's probably gonna have a little sophomore slump second season and then build into a career. Like this is a 3-year project to get an all pro.
No, you know what, DT? I would agree with you if you were talking about like a 30th pick. But if you trade up and go get a guy who's Micah Parsons or who's Jamar Chase or who's Justin Jefferson, those guys will help you right away and become superstars right away.
Justin Jefferson went at 24.
Yeah, but that wasn't his fault though.
But I'm just like, there's guys up there. But then last year in the top 10, who's in that top 10 that's like scary?
I would have to go back and look at it.
I would have to go back and look too. I mean, I understand both of your points for sure, because I know that there's been a big time.
Aiden Hutchinson was scary.
Yeah, I mean, and he was good. That was a couple of years ago. You're right about that.
That was a couple of years ago. I'm sorry.
It's just
Jaden Daniels, number 2.
Yeah, Jaden.
Malik Neighbors, number 6.
He worked out. He looks like a stud. DT's argument.
Brock Bowers, Bo Nix.
I think the overall point is that the best players are going to be at the top of the draft because that's where it's easy. And that's what was my original point was like, what are the – if I was a Bill scout, I'm going on Saturdays to Clemson. I'm going down there and you know what I mean? Like Listen, it's the tape. And then if you want to, however much, stock you want to put in the Indianapolis in the scouting combine. But after that, it's really throwing darts at a board. Not that it doesn't matter or that you have no clue who is supposed to be good. But I think that the draft itself from 1 to 32 and then from 33 to 64, all the way down through all 7 rounds, they don't really have a damn clue. And everybody's just kind of doing their best to guess on it. And I think that the best guys are at the top, and it's just so hard to get game-changing guys. So having said that, and let's assuming that the Bills don't get a game-changing year one guy like DT's talking about, they keep talking about the Bills' needs. I think that there's a consensus of what everybody seems to think that we need. I guess we need a cornerback too, somebody opposite of Christian Benford. They talk about we need a defensive tackle, somebody like Justus was just talking about, to make Ed Oliver's life easier, maybe unlock even more of his potential. So he's not taking on double teams and different things like that because he's a penetrating defensive tackle. So somebody that's going to play right over that center at that one tech. And then they also talk about an edge. Now I'll drop a bomb on y'all. I want to get y'all's opinion first. DT, what do you think that we need? Are those like the consensus? I mean, what the consensus says is that, are you in lockstep with that? They say cornerback 2, they say defensive tackle, and they say defensive edge. And that's like every single mock that you see out, is that those are the picks that they need to go after?
I think I want to throw one in there. I don't necessarily going to put this as number 1, but I think safety is crucial. Until I see what Cole Bishop can do, I think safety is crucial. That's something that you can get away with cornerbacks being mediocre if your safeties are good. And this, I don't believe, other than if Cole Bishop can come play, I don't want another year with DeMar Hamlin starting just because he knows the defense, and that's a liability back there. I think safety might go ahead of corner for me. Defensive line, where that kind of comes into play for me, is there's only 3 technically on the roster. Ogunjobi is out for 6 games. So that tells me they really like Dwayne Carter. Came in rookie, was vibing last year. I think they're really going to put a lot on him this year, knowing DaQuan Jones is kind of on his way out, and Dwayne Carter to come in and play that opposite of Ed Oliver. So if they weren't making other moves in free agency other than Ogunjobi, which is going to be out for the first 6 games, I think they really are like, we'll just get somebody in the draft. We'll put them in, and these are going to be our top 3 guys, and we'll roll with that. So I don't know if that's a more glaring need than the defensive backfield, whether it's safety, whether it's corner. Rasul Douglas lost a step, but he was a starter for you last year. Christian Benford was never in the spotlight, and now he's going to be. So the corner room is scarce. I think there's a lot going to be done with that. We saw it this week with Bradbury coming in for a visit and re-signing Trey White. They want to fill in that, in that defensive backfield. But I want to put safety a little higher than people are talking about. I know there's not as many in the draft and a little hard to evaluate, but I think that's a little more important to me on the defensive end than D-line or corner. And I'm never going to stray away from the wide receiver thing, back and forth of nobody's proven other than Khalil Shakir, and he's not your Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. So we need – I will never be upset taking a receiver early, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, take a receiver anytime. I'll never be upset with it.
Justus, DT's trying to steal my thunder because I have a bomb to drop on y'all, and I guess I have to drop the nuclear right now. And I kind of did it on Twitter the other day. I do not care anymore about defense, and DT already knows, Nickel City crew already knows that I lean offense, but it's getting on my nerves to the point where everyone is talking about a corner or defensive tackle or a defensive edge. And why do I care about Sean McDermott's defense when the chips are on the table in the postseason and his defense is historically bad? Not bad, Justus. Historically bad. We talked about it at the end of last season, how their DVOA and different type, like their metrics are historically bad against 15. Historically bad. Why do I care about stocking up his cupboard when all he's going to do is shit the bed when it comes time for him to really stand up with his defense? Let's go score 40, Justus. Let's go score 40, Bills Mafia, Nickel City crew. Let's go score 40. Let's try that every game, and we'll see what happens. And of course, we're not going to score 40 a game because that would be some type of record. Let's go try to score 40. I don't care about supplying McDermott with tools. Not that he's not a good defensive coach. Not that he has no idea what he's doing. I'm not trying to disrespect the man. I understand that he's not going anywhere. He doesn't show up in the playoffs, man, when it counts the most. So because of that, I really don't give a shit anymore. And I'm standing there, as the kids say, 10 toes down. I'm right. I'm standing right there. I don't care anymore. I don't care.
You know what? That's fair. I would argue that McDermott has never really had a ton of blue chip players to work with to begin with. You know what I mean? Like, McDermott kind of makes the most out of scraps. Really.
Oh my God. Okay.
I'm just being real.
Are you talking about just those last games when you and I got into an argument and stuff like that?
No, I just mean historically, like since he's been the Bills head coach, like he's turned good players into great players. He's turned mediocre players into good players. I don't think he's ever had a stacked defense. You know what I mean? He's kind of made the most out of the defense he's been given. Him and
Leslie top 5 defenses though before last year, Justus.
But that's my point.
So you're saying
it wasn't like it wasn't top 5 roster defenses.
But the roster this year, we have a lot more holes than we did 3 years ago on the defense, and the defense was fine. And we go in the playoffs and same thing. So I get what you're saying, Rob. And then this defense has way more holes on it. So even if we get a blue chipper in the first round, that doesn't make it better than the defense 3 or 4 years ago. And I think that's your point, Rob. Like, even if we go and get a stud on defense, that doesn't mean our defense is going to be studded out now. Like, our defense always lays the egg, and it was a lot better roster than it's going to be this year. 3 years ago than it's going to be this year, no matter who we pick up, no matter who we draft. The roster 3 years ago on defense is going to be a lot better than what we have this year. So the back and forth of, like, who cares about defense? Because a couple years back when the Eagles had one of the best defenses since the 85 Bears and they didn't touch Mahomes in the Super Bowl, got 40 hung on them. Mm-hmm. Well, fast forward to this year, what was the difference? The difference was the pressure and messing with Mahomes, right? So it's game plan. It's you can't hang your hat on either one, but I'm not on the camp of McDermott's never had a good defense and he plays with scraps, because 3 years ago they had all pros all over the field on defense and they had the same shit happened. Then last year they had a lot more holes and the same shit happened. So now this year coming in, even if they get a few studs, they're still going to be a worse roster defense than they were 3 years ago when it didn't matter. So that's, I think, your point, Robin, and I would back that.
Go ahead, Justus. Go ahead. You got the floor. Because I was just going to ask you, as DT was finishing up, what's the best defense in your mind that McDermott has had since he's been here? I would say it was 13 seconds here. I would say that it was when it was Hyde and Poyer at their height. They're all pros. Tre'Davious doing his thing, all pro. He's back. We love that. I mean, obviously he's older now, but what's the best in your mind, in your opinion? I'm not trying to shoot you down. It almost seems like you're giving McDermott a lot of credit and saying that he's been coaching not bums, but he's been coaching average talent. He had some.
So there's two separate discussions that need to be had about McDermott. There's a discussion about McDermott, the defensive coach, just in general. And then there's a discussion about Sean McDermott, the defensive coach, in the playoffs, in crunch games in the playoffs specifically, right?
Okay.
Because those are two different coaches as far as
I understand.
So
I agree.
Defensive coach Sean McDermott, he took a Jordan Poyer, who was with Cleveland, who no one cared about.
Special team rotational.
Micah Hyde, who was a good to decent player in Green Bay, but nobody really cared about. He brought them together and turned them into one of the best safety duels in the history of this league. Right.
I agree. Yes, sir.
Ron Johnson, who
Weber State, never had heard of it. I knew Dame Lillard went there. Right? I didn't even know they played football.
You find a position for him to make him thrive and become one of the best players in the league.
Okay.
Right? Tremaine Edmonds ain't really special. I think it's fair to say that he's not really special.
Got the traits, right? That's how he got drafted. He's got the measurables.
Yeah, right? He got the measurables, but he ain't really done nothing that special, right? And you turn him into a potential all-pro player. Like, he could have been all-pro when he was here if the votes went his way or whatever the case may be.
Right.
Never really had any semblance of a decent defensive line before Von Miller, and then he was immediately injured. Right,
I agree on that. The defensive line,
Tre'Davious White, tore his ACL. Like Tre'Davious White, Von Miller, I'll even throw Ed Oliver in there, have been the only defensive players that Sean McDermott has had that you expected to succeed.
Oh, you mean from the beginning?
From the jump. Matt Milano, no one expected that.
Yes,
right?
No, I agree. Now, I'll give you that.
That's kind of my point, right?
I can go with you on that.
He gets the most out of people, right? Now, in the playoffs, I'm with you. That's a separate story, okay? But I just want to be objective, right? I just want to – Sean McDermott, I have my gripe with Sean McDermott, but he is a hell of a defensive coach. And when you have – so there's Sean McDermott is a double-edged sword, right? Because – with Sean McDermott as your defensive coordinator, you have the best quarterback in the league. So you're going to constantly lose offensive coordinators. So then you have to have your quarterback readjust and the offense readjust. And that's going to have to keep happening over and over again. And that's going to be something that we have to deal with as long as we have Sean McDermott.
Correct.
However, on the flip side, as long as we have Sean McDermott, we will never be the Bengals. We'll never have a prolific, historic offense that is all for naught because the defense is god-awful. I don't care who's on the field. The Buffalo Bills defense will never be god-awful because of Sean McDermott. So
I gotta give. Now I have to give you that. That you almost. I was getting ready to refute you, and then you said the Bengals at the end, and that you're right. No, you're right because their offense had no business being out of the playoffs, and I'll give you. I'll give you that. I will give you that. I don't think that he'll ever feel the defense that poor, where they're losing all those different type of shootout games, and it was just
with Trey Hendrickson, by the way.
Yeah, it was historic how bad they were, for sure. Now, DT, as we begin to transition, tonight's episode is presented by 26shirts.com. Head on over to 26shirts.com for all of your latest Buffalo Bills, Buffalo fan, themed t-shirts, shout out to the Godfather Del Reed. He's running a great site over there. Remember, portions of your proceeds, Bills Mafia, will go to a great cause. It's going to help a family that's in need across Western New York, across the world. They've got great content creators over there creating some cool t-shirts. So again, head on over to 26shirts.com. You'll really, really be happy that you did because you are going to be helping out a great cause. DT, as we begin to wrap up tonight, and we'll get to it. So I'm team offense. I don't think that the Bills are going to pull the trigger on a wide receiver, even though I want to surround Josh Allen with as many weapons as possible. I just want him to just be, just the cupboard is just full. The pantry is just busting at the seams because he has so many weapons. I don't think they're going to do that. I do think they're going to cater to Sean McDermott. Anybody that's caught your eye, any position, even if it's not a specific player that you want to see the Bills come out of that first round with next week, DT, because for me, corner is cool. I never got excited about a defensive tackle in my life unless it was Warren Sapp, or now Aaron Donald is the new age. Like I never got that. Won't move the meter for me. I know that this guy Kenneth Grant. I'm a Michigan man. Kenneth Grant moves a lot of needles. Like I'm not a run defense. Like I don't really give a shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like stop the pass. What got us beat against Kansas City? We couldn't stop the pass. What almost got us beat against Baltimore? They shredded us in the pass game. Derrick Henry didn't do shit. It wasn't like that first matchup. He didn't beat us. It was the pass defense that got shredded. So for me, corner seems like a good idea. If you could find somebody that's got those traits, quote unquote, a defensive tackle's not going to move me. And I could have swore a defensive end. I know we need to get younger, but didn't we just go sign two of them, like Hoyt, and then Bosa? Like, I don't see a first round defensive end, but maybe. Yeah. What do you see, DT? What position or player would you like to come out of round one with?
Well, trade everything and go get Travis Hunter, and that checks wide receiver and corner, and that's 2 picks for the price of one, and you move on with your life. But realistically, no, I think what moves the meter is a wide receiver in round one. And I don't even think we need to trade up to get it. Just at 30, taking a wide receiver, it's going to be a stud. There's not a ton of receivers kind of early touted in this draft, as opposed to the previous 3 or 4 years. There's been 8 in the first round that you're like, oh, I want all these guys. I want all these guys. And, and they go on a run. In this case, I don't think that's going to be the case. So a receiver at that 30 slot I would be moving the needle for. What I want to see, though, is some pick movement. 10 picks. Last year, Brandon Beane made 10 picks. They had 10 picks, and he made them all. And, excuse me, there's a few, obviously, that play. There's a few that we might see some potential for. And then there's some guys we're never going to see again. And that's every draft. So it's not just because 10 picks that was the case. But 10 picks, I don't foresee us making 10 picks this year. I want to move up into, there's no third rounders, right?
Correct.
So I want to get rid of these fifths and these sixths, get into that third, and then you can go 1 third or 1 first, 2 seconds, a third, and 2 fourths. So that would be, that's 6 picks in the first 4 rounds. That's nice. Your whole draft. That's a lot of teams' whole draft is 6 picks, and you can get all 6 picks in the first 4 rounds. So I think what moves the needle for me as a receiver, I'm not pissed if we don't do that. I'll take a need, I'll take a D lineman, corner, safety, or receiver at 30. But I think a receiver would move the line. Luther Burden from Missouri.
That's low. Yeah, I like him. I like
dude
him.
That is an athletic freak, or I'd like the constant battle of speed or size. I don't know. Like if it's size, I want the biggest motherfucker out there. I want the 6'5", 250 guy. If it's speed, the same on the other way. Like I don't want no in between guys. Pick one and go all the way. But my biggest thing, receiver, maybe Luther Burden, whatever, moving the needle at 30, but moving up into that third round or even into the second and having 6 picks in the first 4 rounds. That's what would get me excited.
I like that, Justus. What does the general, when he goes next week and sits down and gets some chicken wings, got a plate of wings, and you're just chilling watching the draft unfold? What would you be hoping for as Thursday night concludes? Since we're not picking till damn near midnight, which is a good thing. I'm not complaining. That means you've been good last year.
You know what? After all that I just said about Sean McDermott and never really having any weapons, I actually agree with you. I think just going crazy on offense would probably be your best bet. Because imagine Josh Allen with a Detroit-like offense.
It would just What? I mean, come on.
What are we talking about? Imagine Josh Allen with a Cincinnati-like offense. What's the discussion to be had here?
I can only imagine. No, I mean the only thing I would be doing.
I don't even care what you could put a middle school on defense. It wouldn't matter, right? As long as you got, I would consider Joey Bosa a decent to good defensive end. So as long as he can stay healthy, if you can maybe get one more significantly dominant pass rusher to help out with him and Rousseau and Oliver,
Vanessa in that rotation,
and you can score points on people, and then you let those guys pin their ears back and go get the quarterback because they got to keep up with Josh Allen dropping 43 points, just off the muscle, you know what I mean? Third quarter, and you already got 37. That is the type of offense game plan I would like to see. And again, because you have Sean McDermott, who's never going to put you in a Cincinnati Bengals situation, you're allowed to play more fast and loose by just air raiding or just running down people's throats and just being having your offensive prowess be so dominant that they would have to try to match it. And that's when people start making mistakes.
Yeah, I think that's we talked about that before, DT, as we begin to wrap up tonight. Is pressure bust pipes. I mean, we always talk about that on Nickel City Crew. Pressure bust pipes. So what is scarier for the opposing coordinator? Is it a big ass defensive tackle? It's Kenneth Grant or one of those other guys. I think Pat. I don't even know all the names, but there's some defensive tackles. They said it's a heavy defensive tackle draft. Is that the scariest thing that offensive coordinators are going to wake up and stay up at night thinking about, or is the defensive coordinator thinking about, gosh darn it, they got Palmer, who he's playing better with Josh Allen. They've got Shakir, who's their bread and butter. They've got this other rookie. They've got Kincaid, who's terrorizing the middle of the field. They even have Knox off the bench. Like, I don't even know how I'm going to guard this guy this week. They got James Cook out the backfield, and he's got Ty Johnson as well, spelling him. I don't know what I'm going to do with this offense. I want the offense to be scary. I understand what everybody eats. I just think that everybody eats lulled everyone into a false sense of security last year. That's my final standing on everybody eats, because of the fact that obviously they made the AFC Championship game. I can only talk so much shit. I think that everybody in Bills Mafia, not everybody, a lot of the fan base got very, very happy to shit on 14 and say that we forced him the ball when it was a great idea to give him the ball because he was always open. Well, what if you have? Okay, well then two things can be true. Then let's surround Josh with as many 14s as possible. Let's get him as many dangerous weapons as possible. Guys that separate, guys that win their one-on-one battles, guys that can find the soft zone like Shakir does in zones, and then all of a sudden maybe Kincaid can be unlocked. Let's find as many weapons for Josh Allen, because I think at the end of the day, when it's January, I think that I'll just put my chips on us scoring as close to 40 as possible, and then I don't really care about the defense at that point. And I think that's my final point, DT, is that I have cared enough about this defense over the years, and I keep getting burned. Yeah. I tell my kids as they're little and they start walking around the house, keep your hands off the stove. Not because the stove is hot right now, but because of the fact that you don't know one day when it is hot. I don't even want you to get in the habit of putting your hand on the stove, because you will get burned. I've been burned too many times by McDermott's defense, man. I am not putting my hand on the stove. I don't care about who you get for him on next Thursday, DT. Yes, I'll care, and I'll look at his highlights that night, just like all of Bills Mafia will, and like, man, this guy, Kenneth Grant, he's something else, or this guy. After that, it's just going to fade away quickly, man. Offense will keep my attention.
That's fair, and it seems like it's not a draft where, other than the Travis Hunters and whatnot, that you can kind of get some studs on the offensive side of the ball through this draft. If we have 10 picks, kind of my philosophy earlier about picking 7 quarterbacks till we find the guy, let's pick a bunch of wide receivers, let them go to camp, roll the ball out, the dogs come to the top, and the dogs play. So I'm with that. I like it. I mean, we're got to fill some holes on D, though, inevitably. Just the roster needs it. Sure. You need the bodies to be out there and play. And the second the defense does start becoming a liability during the year, that's obviously the main talking point of, we can't win anything because Josh doesn't have a defense. It's always goes back to that. But a few names I want to throw out there that are kind of off the cuff, that aren't necessarily going to move the needle for us, but I think would be good, smart pickups with a very deep draft. Quarterback, yeah. Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. This dude is Josh Allen Jr. Now people are going to come after me for the rushing stats, because the rushing stats are he's got like minus 150 yards rushing in his college career, like total, like that's his stat line. But stats our sacks come into play on that, and they didn't rush a lot at Syracuse or Ohio State. Ohio State, they were just crushing everybody. Syracuse, the offense didn't call for it, whatever. Kyle McCord has a cannon. Kyle McCord's a winner. Kyle McCord is Josh Allen Jr. in my eyes, and I think a late-round pick, if he's available, to bring him in and have some sort of security. If 17 ever does go down, you got a similar player that comes in. We're never going to have another Josh Allen to back up Josh Allen, obviously, but Mitch Trubisky and the other experiments the last couple of years are just duds. And if we can have kind of a dog to back up 17, that would make me feel a lot better about things. And he could go late. Local, adversity, chip on his shoulder, come in, be the backup. Otherwise, Desmond Watson. You'll know him if you see him. Look him up. Defensive lineman, Florida. 6'5".
Oh, that's that big dude. Yes.
470. Bring me the Vince Wilfork. Bring me the Vita Vea. Bring me the big MFer to plug that middle, who's not going to get any sacks, but is going to take three guys each play, because he's just a plug in there. And I get that's something late rounds. You could get him, and could be a project, and could be the next Vince Wilfork or Vita Vea, and that dominant pressure on that line. We have that Star Latulier type that we haven't had since he left. It's been a little more athletic and small down there. Let's get that big boy. Desmond Watson, Jordan Brand, Florida.
Now, he doesn't have to be first round, I don't think, right?
Oh, no, that's the guy you can get he might not even get drafted because he weighs 500 pounds. But so those are some sneaky names late in the draft. Put them on the Bills, see what we can do. We got 10 picks.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked your strategy earlier about trading up. I know that there's a crowd out there of people, and I listen to them a lot. And I hear them on GR about they'll never trade up because, again, what I talked about before, you don't know. So why are you trading up for an unknown commodity? I get that, but there's not 10 roster spots. There's nowhere for these guys to fit. You cannot even sneak all of them. If they're good enough, you can't even sneak them on the practice squad because you have to release them anyway after. So you may not even get a chance to get them on the practice squad. So because of that factor, I'm down with you on trading up and, using some of the back end capital to make some of that front end capital a little bit sweeter.
With those multiple picks and, second round, they're late, but fourth round, they're early. Right. Fourth round is the 7th pick of the 4th and then the 30, obviously.
Right.
So if you can get into that third, and have the 2 seconds, the first, the third, and then that's 6 picks in the first 4 rounds.
That'd be kind of nice.
Three players,
starters,
three starters out of that.
Yeah.
One
or rotational guys, the way that they play their defensive line. Absolutely. Now,
and that's just as many as a full 10-pick draft last year, where we have maybe questionable, maybe 3 guys,
right, that are actually contributing. Yes. Oh no, by the time the end of the season was done, Dwayne Carter was on the bench. He didn't even get a jersey for the Kansas City game. None of the draft picks were really doing too much of anything. I know Javon Solomon kind of turned on a little bit as it got later in the year, and he got a jersey, but there wasn't too much to write home about. Now, as we wrap up tonight, the draft, again, it is funny, and it's fun thing for us to all, kind of go back and forth with. And I think the DT was absolutely right the way that he started the show. It is the season of hope. Now, we've obviously here in Bills Mafia, we've got plenty of hope. We got Josh Allen leading the show, so obviously we have plenty of hope to go around. I am ready for my parade, DT. I'm ready for the parade, and I think that because I've been so laser focused on that, stuff like the draft, and off-season, free agent additions and stuff like that, it kind of just goes under the radar for me because of the fact that I'm spoiled. And I could be honest and say that I'm spoiled, but it's not a bad spoiled. It's just the fact that we have one of the best players on the planet, one of the best players playing right now, and he'll obviously go down in history. I just want to maximize everything. So it's just, man, what is the order of the games? When does September start? And let's go from there. And, and I understand that that's not how everything works. So I really do enjoy the draft in respects to the young men and their families, their lives changing. One of my favorite commercials with the NFL network, they put on a commercial and it shows, every year, Saturday meets Sunday, and they got all these different cut-ups and stuff like that on there. And I really, really enjoyed that commercial. It was a couple years ago. Even Reggie Ragland was on it. And then they got like the Griffin twins, the one with the one hand, they were on there and stuff like that. And I was like, that is a really cool commercial. I really do enjoy seeing the families, their lives change. Being a dad and just all the practices and shit like that, Saturday mornings, and you're like, oh my God, during the week, and you're trucking these kids all over the damn city. I have an appreciation for that as a father now because, this is a lot of work to get and realize these dreams. So I'm really happy for that part of the draft. I do enjoy watching that. I just don't know all the prospects' names. So DT, don't hold it against me, Nicholson City Crew. Don't hold it against me, Bills Mafia. I don't know everybody, DT. I would like another weapon. And if it's an offensive weapon in the second round, I promise you I'll stay up. I'll stay way past my bedtime just watching that motherfucker's highlights all night. I'll just be watching highlights like, oh yeah, that'll work well with Josh. I think this guy Kyle Williams. I think same day as our 95 Kyle Williams from Washington State.
Kyle Williams,
fast as hell. I'm like, okay, I like that. Like, give me a Kyle Williams in the second round. Like, I'm not mad. Go get your defensive tackle first round or corner, and then give me that guy. I don't know if it's on Brandon Beane's radar, but I really hope that it is. I really do.
And then do it then, Brandon Beane. Pick somebody in the first round so we don't wait all Thursday, go to bed at 1 a.m, and then don't pick anybody. So pick somebody in the first round so we can at least watch some highlights on Friday.
Yeah, I hear about it, about the parties that are going on. Resurgence is having a party. They keep promoting it and stuff like that on the radio. So you're absolutely right. Nothing worse than spending money all night and then, no payoff at the end. Listen, DT, I really appreciate you tonight. Shout out to our guest, Justus General Radford, again, the creative director at BuffaloFAMBase, the official Bills Mafia podcast network that DT and I simulcast on. He had to jet out. He's got a date night tonight. DT, I guess a quick tailgate report. We don't really have one. You know what I mean? It's the holiday weekend. What are the plans for the holiday? On my end, I've got my girls are gone. They went with their mother to Georgia to see her family, so they're gone. They'll be back Monday. Nate got snatched up from me by one of his besties, and they went to Myrtle Beach. The dad was like, "Hey, can we take Nate?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Me and his mom was like, "Sure, take him." So he went to Myrtle Beach. So it's literally been me, Bobby, and Quincy holding it down. Tomorrow we got haircuts, and then after that, man, I'm trying to just watch some NBA playoffs, man. I am chilling. I am not doing shit on nothing. I am just going to relax, watch the playoffs. I love NBA playoffs. It's my favorite time of year for the NBA. So that's my Nickel City Crew takeaway report, man. It's slow motion. Half the kids here, half gone, and Sundays to myself. I'm gonna chill.
I like it. I like it. Weather's breaking. I think next week's going to be actual spring finally up here. So this weekend should be relatively decent. Pretty good weekend. Heading back to the homestead. Going to see what's going on. I'd like to, nice slate of NFL and NHL playoffs as they start
NBA.
tomorrow. Mm-hmm. They say NHL playoff hockey is something different, and I agree. And now this year with Luka and LeBron, maybe LeBron's last push for a legitimate title ring, so I'm on that too. A little tidbit, I'm going to see the Queen's movie, Sinners.
Really?
Haley Steinfeld co-starring with Michael B. Jordan.
Michael B. Jordan, yes.
Yep, big movie coming out this weekend. Got to support the Queen.
That's what's up.
Got to go see that. I like still going to the movies. I'm old school in that, Rob. I like going to the movies. I like getting the popcorn.
I love it.
Rolling up in the parking lot before, whatever you got to do to get right for the movie. And I'm looking forward to that. I don't, I'm putting a lot of home bias into it, and it might suck, but Michael B. Jordan's solid. Haley Steinfeld had a good actress career before, she got into music, and obviously Spider-Man was the last big one for her, but it looks good.
She was like in one of those Marvel like shows or something like that, right? Hawkeye. Yep. Hawkeye.
The trailer looks like it's going to be a little mind tricky and fun. So Michael B. Jordan, Haley Steinfeld, Sinners. We watching that this week. And Easter, we're doing a little unorthodox. Not seeing the sister in the EJ, and they're going up to her in-laws. So just me, the parents, and the grandmas, and we're going to do some ribs on the Traeger. So I requested, you can't beat the Traeger ribs. So that's what, instead of a ham, we're going ribs.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. You can switch it up. You can pull it audible anytime when it comes to the holidays, as long as there's no written rules and family traditions that you can't break. Yeah, absolutely, break them up and switch it up. That's what's up. Some ribs on the Traeger sounds great, man. I really do hope that you enjoy the holiday with your peoples, man. Nickel City Crew out there, Bills Mafia, please enjoy the holiday weekend. Be safe out there. We really do love you guys. Season 5 is in full swing. We will be back next week. Not sure exactly if it's going to be our episode or we might be a part of a simulcast, but we will get you that information. Shout out again to Olivia Nagel, our creative director, and she just takes care of us. So she will let you know and keep you in the loop as next Thursday approaches. Round 1 Thursday. I think it's round 2 and 3 on Friday,
2, 3 Friday,
and then everything else on Saturday. Yep. Yeah. So listen, Nickel City Crew, we will be at you on next Friday. We will recap and talk about what's been going on in respect to that first round pick. Like DT said, hopefully we make the pick and everybody gets paid off from Thursday night. But other than that, man, I will see you next week, DT. Enjoy the weekend out there. Listen, spread love, not hate. These were my Bills thoughts said out loud. Hit him with a go Bills, DT. I mean, I'm sick of the defense. I'm sick of it. I don't want to talk about defense anymore. Score 40. Go Bills. That's me. That's my sign off.
Go Bills. Parade year. Go Bills. Parade year.
Oh, goodness. I love it. I love it.